Hi, welcome to Wilson Bridge. My name is Brian Drew, Senior Strategist at Wilson Advertising.
And I'm Devin Meister, Content Director.
And today on Wilson Bridge, we're going to be talking about marketing ROI, marketing return on investment. I know, Devin, you recently were looking over a Harvard Business Review study, sort of a refresher on calculating marketing ROI. And one of the things that we talk a lot about on Wilson Bridge is how do you bridge the gap between your marketing technology spend, your MarTech spend, and then the personality of your brand and the messaging and activities that you do around your brand. So maintaining the right brand value and consistency in your communication while simultaneously spending lots and lots and lots of your budget and lots of your time on MarTech and the technology infrastructure that's voicing your brand, right? And so one big thing that marketers bring up a lot about is, well, now that we have these revenue requirements, new KPIs, because our MarTech budgets have gone up so much, it's how do we calculate ROI?
Yeah, so everybody wants to know, what am I getting in return for all this? So that you can
Correct.
make it as simple or as complex as you want. But this HBR article, going as a refresher, there's a previous article. They had 4 benefits of calculating your marketing ROI. First was justifying your market spend. So how much should I spend on marketing? And you need to report back to that in different C-suite. Everybody wants to know. That's the big question. How much should I spend on marketing? What am I spending on marketing?
You hear a lot of things too, right? I've heard the rule of thumb, 10% of revenue is a good approximation of the marketing budget. I don't think there's actually a rule of thumb for that. It depends on a lot of variables involving the industry, growth goals. I don't even know if that's the right place to start.
Yeah, and it's it just seems like it's fake and it's just making up a number. Like 10%, it's like, why not 15%? What
Right.
are you tying it to? What's the return? You still haven't really got to an actual return. You just picked a figure out of the air and we're going to go with that. And a lot of it seems to tie back to that.
Yeah.
Another thing is deciding where to spend. So you could justify, so time savings on marketing automation will save this. If we have, this ad campaign leads to this many clicks, or we have outdoor, different ways to measure that. But deciding where to put your budget for the next year will be a good use of time for, calculating your marketing ROI.
Yeah, and we talked about this on a previous bridge, but I'm of the position that marketing ROI is a little bit of a fool's errand. I don't think of marketing as an investment that exists on your balance sheet. I think it's an expense that's on your income statement. There are lots of things about marketing that are very critical, and there are too many confounding factors to tie that spend back directly to revenue. You can try. The worst case scenario, you can do it, and it's just not truthful. There are aspects of that revenue that are not holistically owned by the acquisition of a particular piece of SaaS or marketing technology, and that to me is troublesome in and of itself. But also, marketing is an investment. It's in the value of your brand. Your brand is not necessarily responsible for revenue. It is an asset on your balance sheet, the goodwill level, that's responsible for carrying your company over the long run. So if your market, your industry has a lot of changes, your brand is what's going to get you through those changes. Your brand is what's going to get you through disruption. Your brand is what's going to get you through fighting off an aggressive acquisition or getting in a favorable acquisition, going public, raising funds and capital, going into a new market, going globally, going into a new product. In any kind, your brand is the spirit of your company, and that is what marketing should be investing in and valuing in terms of their MarTech spend. Going back to bridging the gap between the personality of your brand and your MarTech spend.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because one of the things they suggested doing was baselining your sales. What would your sales be if you didn't have this marketing investment? And it's like once you've started, there's always going to be some sort of cost, whether it's word of mouth through sales. There's always some outbound communication that you're going to have to put some value or cost on, I think, some way, if you're going to have a true valuation of your marketing ROI. And and the third benefit they said was to compare your marketing to competitors, which seems If you can barely compare your marketing ROI for your own company, doing it for your competitor seems next to impossible. Even if you're a huge publicly traded company, you're comparing yourself to other publicly traded financial documents that are available, you're not going to get very close on these.
Well, I'll tell you where I think comparative analysis is important. So going back to how much should we be spending and where should we be spending? So we don't know, but let's go to marketing being an expense on the income statement. And that's really the language that you should be using with your senior level finance executives, your CFO's office, is that acknowledgement that we're an expense on the income statement. And so thinking about cost control, what could we be spending? How much is the dream suite of MarTech platforms? How big could this get? How about an agency of record, 3 different agencies, a dozen different automation platforms, lots of different resources? How big could it get if money was no object, right? And then work down to what's actually true to our brand and our charter and our growth goals. Then you whittle that down to what's most effective. And that will get you both to the number in terms of what you should be realistically spending. And it'll also get you to what are our priorities in terms of where should we be spending our money. So it's comparative in the sense that we could go crazy, and this is the list price of all of these licenses and platforms that we think are great, and the level of agency retainer that we could have with various types of agencies that might specialize in brand or might specialize in digital operations, and work cost control into the language that you speak and say, we're trying to get to this level of spend, because we know that we're an expense, and we've really narrowed it down to what we think adds the most effective value to our brand, which is what we're focused on, is creating strength in our brand as an asset on our balance sheet, which will help the company during disruptive, difficult times in the long run.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I'd also start with, your audience. What's it cost to reach your audience? What do you need to reach them with your message? I think that's I suppose looking at competitors.
That's great.
Because I'm great that they're doing this. Our audience needs this. This
Correct.
is where our experience, where our brand needs to be with this audience. And oh, by the way, we're looking at their digital body language. We know we're missing this part of our audience right now. We can bring them into the fold, get more sales from more contacts, more experiences through them.
That's a really good point. Yeah. And it goes to the growth goals,
right?
So
exactly.
What are our growth goals, and who are our audience,
the audience,
and what's the best way that our brand should be communicating to those people?
Yeah, and the fourth benefit they had was to hold the marketing accountable for what they say they're going to do, which is just another. Yeah, everybody wants to be more accountable, right? But you still haven't even established what ROI is,
right.
And now you're going to put your feet to the fire and say, "Well, we're going to accomplish this." So
it's a tricky game that marketing is playing. Being more responsible for revenue is something that a lot of marketers want and are willing to sign up for. But what's the cost of that? Being more accountable to your spend. And saying things like, well, if we're going to spend $1.5 million on our website, which a company that I know we work with recently is doing, if we're going to be spending this kind of money, tying it back to, well, what's the return that we're getting? And I think a website is a great case example. And well, there are, it's like, what's the ROI of a conference room table? What's the ROI of your executive conference room table? What's the ROI of your corporate plane or jet? Right. Well, there are ROI. Well, it helped us land a deal or so. But at the same time, this is an expense, and it's an effective part of doing your business. So in conducting business and trying to grow. So is marketing.
Right. And it's getting past even the ROI to realize where you bring the value, where you're bringing more people into the fold. So everybody that has a brand experience doesn't have to be a customer. So like Tesla has, I don't know how many thousands of Facebook fans, and not all those people are customers, but they still contribute to the brand value. They still they're still experiencing the brand, but they're not going to show up on a balance sheet anywhere.
Correct. So, and that's an important point too, is what's the value of the experience that the customer has with your brand? And there are ways in which you can go about measuring and testing that. And a lot of times, and we talk about this, it goes back to older marketing techniques, or more not older, is it traditional sound marketing techniques about understanding and having a relationship with your customer. And marketers need to stop becoming technologists, becoming project managers of IT infrastructure projects. All of that is important, but it's overshadowing the real objective of brand first and creating value in their brand.
Right. So yeah, ROI is important, but there's much more than that. And the one thing I thought was really interesting was how they close the article, and I'll read the quote here. The key is to remember that while marketing expenditures hit the P&L immediately, every dollar you spend today is building your brand as an asset for the future. So ideally, your marketing program is not only affecting sales and profits this year, but also strengthening your brand equity and customer relationships over time.
So that's exactly, So they're basically kind of saying, here's a refresher on marketing ROI.
Yeah.
And here are all the things that you need to remember about and how to calculate it, right? Oh, but by the
Here's
way,
to talk to the C-suite, but also don't forget that your real job is communicate with your audience to build the brand so that you're going beyond this year.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have. And thank you so much for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment.
Thanks.